Welcome to a series of ECRF video documentaries showcasing the Making Agricultural Trade Sustainable. This project is implemented by the consortium of 15 institutions, coordinated by the University of Helsinki and funded by the European Union. This series shows how ECRF has implemented case study number 4, whose objective is to suggest ways of enhancing access to export markets globally by sub-Saharan countries.
My name is Bohela Luno Agr, Principal Research Associate at ECRF, the Economic and Social Research Foundation. My role was to lead a team of researchers on case study number 4. The team consists of researchers from Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia and Ghana. The research findings are meant to improve livelihoods of farmers, mostly smallholder farmers from the 4 countries. Those engaged in cassava in Tanzania, banana in Uganda, goat meat in Ethiopia and cocoa in Ghana. In order to make sure that we understand properly what type of interventions are needed for each of the 4 commodities so that we can enhance production and the export of these commodities, we interviewed farmers, researchers, processors, policymakers in some cases, but also exporters. We made sure that they prioritize, they give us some advice on what should be the priority interventions. And so we divided those interventions into 2 groups, broad common cross-cutting interventions, which are common for all the 4 commodities in the 4 countries, and we have some specific commodity-specific interventions. To start with, in this series, the first series, we look at cross-cutting common interventions, which are for all the 4 commodities. One is related to improving the linkage between research and extension and the farmers, so that they can improve productivity, make sure that whatever they are doing responds to market requirements. The second aspect in terms of priority is that of making sure that there's adequate support in terms of financial services, because some of them will require mechanization a bit. We require some investments in warehousing and for processors, for example, or some facilities to buy modern machinery for making sure that they process and package the commodities properly. But in some specific areas, there will be need to adopt new technologies to make sure that the farming practices are not harmful to the environment. And the last one, of course there are several, but the last one, which in terms of importance, is that of making sure that our governments invest in improving infrastructure at different level, at the production level, irrigation, for example, rural roads, rural energy, and making sure that there are special facilities, for example, laboratories and warehousing for some commodities like cocoa and banana. In our next video, we shall deep dive and look at what are the specific issues which are really required for each of the commodities. We shall look at what is needed for cassava, for example, what's needed for banana, for goats, and for cocoa, so that policymakers can be very specific on what they need to do for each of those 4 commodities.
As we continue to push the boundaries of scientific exploration, one thing remains certain: the journey of discovery is never ending.
In this video, we will look at specific issues which were raised by stakeholders on what should be done to make sure that cassava is an export commodity and more beneficial to our farmers. there are like many recommendations, but we have picked on 4 main recommendations. One is that of making sure that we modernize the way land preparation is undertaken. Under normal circumstances of the way our smallholders farm cassava, with the hand hoe or normal or ox plow or tractors, we see that the yield is about 4 to 5 tons per hectare. But by doing what they call subsoiling, whereby we have special implements mounted on tractors, whereby it's like a chisel digging deeper, it improves water penetration, retention, and therefore allows roots to go deeper and the tubers grow larger. By so doing, with a very small marginal cost, actually yield improves by 10 times, from 4 or 5 up to 35 and 40 tons, metric tons per hectare. That way, you see farmers can benefit, get more money per unit area compared to the traditional way of cassava farming. The second area which farmers recommended was that of making sure that there are some shared facilities for drying cassava, because especially when it's raining, some shared facilities are important, because if cassava is dried and there is a lot of moisture, it gets some fungus. So shared facilities for cassava drying is one of the interventions which farmers recommended. Then both the first recommendation and the second one, it requires farmers also to come into groups as cooperatives or societies that they can share those facilities. And in the traditional way, for example, in some crops, we have actually common facilities for hiring machine tools for that, because not every farmer can afford to have a tractor. So we have they recommended setting up a special mechanization or farm hire centers for that matter. This means our financial sector, financial institutions should be motivated also to make sure that they partner with the government in such programs. The third one is related to that of enhancing productivity. Like land preparation alone is not enough. You need improved varieties, cassava seed varieties. In this case, although the government has tried to come with the new varieties with different names, which actually yield several times more than the traditional varieties, the access to those improved seed varieties has been a challenge, because you have fewer multiplication centers. So the suggestion was that the private sector should be motivated to be involved in seed multiplication, so that the seeds can be easily available to farmers. Some farmers complained of maybe traveling for 100 kilometers just to get maybe 1 ton of improved seeds. So, but by engaging the private sector to also engage, to multiply seeds, it becomes cheaper for farmers to do that. The fourth, in terms of importance, is how the cassava is being used. Traditionally, for most the common use is a snack, as a flour, but there are different uses which the private sector can be motivated. And one of the areas, one of the products for that is the production of cassava starch, so that we don't export cassava chips the way it's done right now. Private sector can be motivated in collaboration with the financial sector to make sure that they produce products other than cassava chips, and cassava starch for industrial use is among those uses which was recommended by farmers. So those are the mainly 4 priority areas. There are several one of them. You are invited to see, to visit our website where we have more detailed report on that one. Thank you. The specific interventions for banana, if we can deep dive for banana in Uganda. There are 4 again areas, priority areas recommended. Deep diving into what should be done into banana. For banana commodities, I think the four main areas which I have picked to emphasize. One is the importance of supporting research institutions to establish a genome bank so that the type of bananas grown and exported are uniform. They don't differ in terms of texture, quality, size, etc. That's important for the international market. So laboratories for genome bank as they call, is important. The second area is that of making sure that there are shared facilities for warehouses, making sure that the storage facilities, especially cold chain, because if they are waiting for export, they need to be stored properly so that they don't fast track their ripening before they reach the market. So cold chain facilities is one of the areas for banana. The third and important area is that of making sure that we learn from other countries, especially in terms of agronomical practices that include preventing cross-pollination, because if you do cross-pollination, it means you change also the structure and the appearance of bananas. I think Jamaica is one of the countries they recommended that Uganda can learn from on how to do that. The fourth one and the last one is the promotion of organically grown banana, because the market for organic products pays higher than ordinarily produced crops. So to do that, I think just like for cocoa, as we will look at Ghana, there's a certification process which is slightly technically requires more capacity building, requires support to make sure that once you brand your banana as organically grown banana, you don't go against what you have promised. The market is very keen on making sure that you are consistent in what you are producing and sending to the international market. We have also looked deeper on what should be done to cocoa commodity as an export crop. As usual, this is also a smallholder grown crop. Among the priority areas which for cocoa required include actually replanting, because most of the cocoa trees were planted in the 50s and early 60s, so they are old. So there's need to make sure that a program which was started by government of Ghana is continued, so that more and more farmers, more and more area is planted within newer trees with the more improved capacity, qualities for producing cocoa. And that's important, but as they do that, the government of Ghana is also requested to continue supporting farmer extension research network, so that farmers can observe the required agronomical practices. At the moment, Ghana also, the government supports farmers in terms of spraying and a bit of fertilizer in some cases. But what is needed also is the need to improve rural infrastructure, road network, making sure that farmers are easily reachable, they can easily transport their crop to the market. Among the areas which were recommended government should support for the farmers to take advantage is that for farmers to take advantage of the high premium price paid to organically grown cocoa. That process is expensive, and because it requires some fees for certification. That's an area again Ghana government should support farmers. There's also important for making sure that there's an enforcement. Remember, when you talk about sustainability, it's about also avoiding to employ child labor. That although the laws are in place which prevent child labor, I think making sure that there's more strict enforcement is an area which requires improvement. There's a need for also for the local processors, especially private sector involved in processing, to invest in modern machinery which can produce better products before exports. At the moment, one of the local processing of cocoa is not as optimal, it's not as required as one would have wished for cocoa to get better income for the country. I think those are the most critical one. Of course, the farmers talked about the government helping to set up irrigation systems so that production is not susceptible to drought or occasional rain failure in some years. So that's an area which again it was recommended by stakeholders. We are grateful for the support which we received from some leaders of cocoa cooperative unions, which we actually managed to communicate via Zoom meetings. As you could see some of the photos we have shown here. But otherwise, we thank all those who helped us make sure that we pick the right sentiments on what needed for cocoa production. We have also made sure we look deeper at what is needed for Ethiopia to succeed in promoting export of goat meat or live goat if the market so requires. In so doing, we noticed that the main market, of course, is Middle East, as we talked, Middle East and some Asian countries. They require some consistency in terms of the size, the age, the tenderness of the meat, and there are specific variety, breed of goats which they prefer, and that breed of goat is mostly popular, most found in Somalia. So one of the interventions which was recommended was for Ethiopian government to work with the stakeholders to import more of that breed so multiplied in adequate quantities for the export market. The second one is actually to build the capacity of farmers, traders, processors, and exporters to be aware and sensitive to the international requirements of the specified brand qualities. As I've said, market experience so far shows that there's a preference to certain breeds which are not necessarily available in large quantities in Ethiopia. The third one is, like in the other commodities, of course, to improve extension services support, which will require retooling of the extension services, especially when you talk about traceability of those animals, because if you look at the requirements of the international market, it requires that then those animals were free of diseases before they are being slaughtered. So I think the traceability element of that will require some specific support. And then the last one in terms of priority is in making sure that the government supports research, livestock research in Ethiopia, especially in identifying the right pasture for goats, so that they get the right grass, pasture, leaves, which enables them to grow within a certain period of their lifespan. With that deep dive, well, for goats, it's my pleasure. But if you want to know more on what we have done on goats, you are welcome to visit our website, the project website and that of our ESCRF.